and welcome to the only podcast recorded by an author walking her dog, where I teach you how to write a book that doesn't suck, because that's our goal, right, as writers? My name's Jamie Ingle of The Right Ingle, and I'm so glad that you're sticking around for episode number 2. I'm in Florida. I live on the East Coast near Kennedy Space Center, and today it's kind of muggy out. So I thought this would be a really good segue into a podcast on the importance of weather in your fiction. You know, we all live in different parts of the world, parts of the country, and we all have weather patterns that are unique to our geographic location. And I think as writers, not only do we forget that, but we forget to continue it once we implement it. And what I mean by that is you have a hurricane coming, and that's part of your plot, and that's part of a character almost that's coming into the story, but it never actually hits, or when it does hit, it's at the same time as the big reveal, so you're more focused on the character development and the emotion of the moment, and you forget the storms outside. And if you've ever lived in a hurricane, it's loud, things get uprooted. When the big gusts come through, it is scary. It sounds like a train outside, which I'm sure a lot of people who have been through tornadoes can attest to, that train noise. So you forget to add those implemented things into the actual fiction writing because you get caught up in something else. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you have a character in a scene and they say something and then you forget about them. And if you were watching the movie version, George would step up and say, "Well, hello, Frank, thanks for joining us." And then he just kind of stalks in the corner and just stares and has nothing more to say. So I think we do that with weather sometimes. So, hey, my neighbor's coming by, so let me say hello. Hey, Bob. How are you?
Yeah, not bad.
Good morning. Maybe a little. You too. I have such great neighbors. He's walking his dog too, but not doing a podcast. So anyway, I just want to encourage you that if you live somewhere that has specific weather to your area, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, fire, volcanoes, whatever it is, tidal waves, pop that stuff into your writing. You can up it with just adding what is happening around you and nothing more. I have a book, Metal Mouth. It's a contender for the 2020-2021 Sunshine State reading list here in Florida. I'm super excited. But what happens in that book is this girl, Mallory, she's running away from a party she's running away from her house because a boy was just trying to be a little more aggressive with her than she would have liked, and nobody else was home. And while she's in the woods running away, a storm hits. So what I did, and I never had thought to do before I thought about adding weather, is having that storm hit just really amped up the problem. Because not only was there the fear of lightning, of course, but there was also the torrential rain blocking everything she was trying to see. And on top of that, the lightning had struck a tree, an old tree, an oak. And now that oak blocked her only path through the land. So because I did that, it forced the character to have to find another route to get home, or to get to the safe haven in the middle of the woods, a cabin that a buddy of hers owned. And I wouldn't have done that otherwise. I would have had Mallory just run straight through, hit the cabin, get out of the rain, get out of the lightning, done. But because the lightning struck the tree, now she had to jump into the water. And if you know anything about Florida water, there's always a gator nearby. So Mallory now had to deal with alligators, and one in particular. So by including the weather as a character, in a way, I was able to up the stakes for Mallory and make that scene so much more intense than it originally had been. You take something like Gary Paulson's book, Hatchet, a classic. Hatchet was about a boy who crashed in a plane and had to survive with just his hatchet, basically, and whatever else he could scrounge. And he was rescued just before winter. But Paulson said, you know what? What would happen if he wasn't rescued? What would change in the story problems, in the character growth if Brian was not rescued. And that's why he wrote Brian's Winter, which is the sequel or companion book, whatever you want to call it, to Hatchet. So I want to encourage you guys today to think about the weather in your area and how you can incorporate that into your stories as another character and as another threat to your protagonist to up the stakes. And you can do this in imaginary worlds. It does not have to just be in real life. I mean, you take a book like Maze Runner, and you've got not only these like flesh-eating zombie-esque creatures chasing these kids who finally escaped a maze that probably was actually a safe haven and they didn't realize it, but now in the real world, they have these monster storms, which are like electrified, like killer lightning, and like they spawn out of multiple tornadoes. It's crazy. But what it does is, instead of these kids having to just cross this desert area to get to this city that they hope is a safe haven, they now have to avoid being struck by random lightning bolts and tornadoes, and it's just crazy. You've got different planets. Mars, I have a short story takes place on Mars, and I have a Mars storm season, and everyone has to leave except for one guy who stays behind to just be the one person risking his life to keep the area secured. And I've never been to Mars, guys, so I'm not sure how it works, but I thought it would be a very cool problem to throw into the story. So, you can take somewhere like the Wizard of Oz, and they've got snow, right? It may be magical snow, but just think about that when you're building your story. Is it sunny the whole time? Do you mention the weather? Do you talk about the weather? Does the weather affect your characters? Is anything happening like that? Because if you know in real life, the very first thing that people say to each other when they don't know each other is they usually talk about the weather. So if it's that important, shouldn't you be incorporating it into your fiction? That's what I got for today, guys. Thanks for hanging out. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share it, like it, get it out there. Help me to help other authors to write books that don't suck, so we can all accomplish our goal, which I believe is we all want to get our books into readers' hands. And together, by the community of sharing what we know, I think we can do that. I encourage you to consider joining my Facebook page of the same name. It's a free group. We're hanging out. We're going to work our way up to some masterminds eventually. But for now, it's just a community where we share ideas. It's facebook.com/write a book that doesn't suck. Guys, until next time, happy writing.